What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the New York Giants just fired defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Finally. Finally. This is something that we've been waiting for. This is long overdue. And now, after another collapse in overtime in the fourth quarter yesterday against the Detroit Lions, the Giants make the move to fire Shane Bowen. This is the fifth time this season the Giants have blown a 10-point lead. Yeah, that's a real statistic. That is the most in franchise history in a single season. Historically, Shane Bowen is terrible. Statistically, he was the worst defensive coordinator in football. The Giants' defensive rushing unit ranks 32nd in the league. They rank 29th in points allowed per game, total yards per game. They rank 29th. This was the worst defense in football. And when opposing offenses had the ball with a chance to win at the end of the game, they were licking their chops. It was prime time for Bo Nix, for Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs, for everybody who came from behind miraculously. Dak Prescott and beat the New York Giants. They just couldn't hold a lead, and somebody had to be held accountable. Brian Daboll was the first to go. Now Shane Bowen out on his way as well. Long overdue. Finally, Alex, the Giants have fired Shane Bowen. What is your instant reaction?
Man, I could have went outside, picked up any pebble on the sidewalk that had more intelligence than Shane Bowen when it comes to calling defensive plays. A pebble. That's the reality of how bad Shane Bowen's. We talked about a couple weeks ago how if you just did the opposite of what Brian Daboll would do, you'd probably be a good head coach. Same goes for Shane Bowen. If you do the exact opposite of what Shane Bowen does, you probably end up being a good head coach. Why is that? I know Dexter Lawrence had a little injury at the end of last game. They were saving him for third downs. Why is he not on the field in overtime? Like, malpractice at its finest. Just the Red Sea parts for Jahmyr Gibbs, who just not even touched all the way to the end zone. DJ Davidson gets moved. I mean, it's Shane Bowen's tenure here was one of the ugliest performances from a defensive coordinator I've ever seen. John Mara said, I'm tired of watching our offenses go up and down the field on us. And then they hired a defensive coordinator that predicated his entire career and game on offenses going up and down the field on his ass. We at least had, we reflect back on Wink Martindale's defense. That was a true bend, do not break defense. Shane Bowen's defense was a bend and fucking break defense, like every single time. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We were losing those games. Yesterday, I tweeted, third quarter, we are blowing this lead. I already know how this goes. We are blowing this lead. I'm sorry to be negative, but this is the reality. Giants blow the lead, lose the game in overtime. See you later. Draft picks, hooray. Like, that was the reality for the Giants yesterday. We all knew it was coming. And listen, I respect Mike Kafka for at least making these changes, as soon as he felt it was necessary. He could have waited till the bye week to do this, but instead he said, I can't actually coach a team with this guy as the defensive coordinator. Bowen should have been out after the Denver game. He really should have been out after the Dallas game in like week 3. And that's a short leash, but he's that bad. And nothing ever changes with this guy. He keeps making the same dumbass mistakes over and over again. His decision-making, his play calling, his personnel grouping, it's all just horrific from head to toe. It took Mike Kafka to literally go to him in the first 3 days that he was the interim head coach to say, we need to start blitzing more. The Giants started blitzing more. They started throwing quarterbacks off of their rhythm a little bit more, and it worked to a degree. Not enough, but it worked to a degree. So when your team is injured, when your team is battered, you need to manufacture pressure. You need to manufacture opportunities for opposing quarterbacks to make mistakes. The Giants just sat back with Corey Black in zone coverage and asked things to happen. I'm like, yeah, Amon-Ra dropped like 3 passes yesterday. He should have went for like 200 plus yards, but he did a couple drops, led to an interception. They got lucky a couple times, but the Giants were disastrous in coverage. Do not forget the game before that against the Packers. How many times do we see this? The run defense was horrible. The coverage was horrible. Deontay Banks was injured this game. Like, it looked better actually. So like, it's just been a mess, man. It's been such a tough watch with Shane Bowen every single week. I'm very glad he's gone. I'm not expecting exponentially better defense because at this point, like, what do we really have to expect? But just get this man off my team. I'm just so happy he's gone.
Right. Like, listen, the season's gone. It's lost. The New York Giants were officially eliminated from the playoffs yesterday. That's embarrassing as it is. So firing Shane Bowen isn't to turn the season around or to try and make a push for the playoffs. It's about giving the fan base a much-deserved pound of flesh. That's what this is. Somebody had to be held accountable. The New York Giants fans needed to get some sort of justification, some sort of reward for sitting through such a bad season. And that's what we get by seeing Shane Bowen relieved of his duties prior to the end of the season. A semblance of accountability. The New York Giants haven't had any accountability or discipline over the last several years, but now seeing them make some midseason firings, this was crucial. This needed to happen. This needed to be ownership signifying to the fans that change is forthcoming, that we are not going to sit on our hands, that we are going to relieve Brian Daboll of his duties, that Mike Kafka is going to step in and relieve Shane Bowen of his duties, that people are going to be held accountable. Now, obviously, that will tie into a greater discussion sooner down the line when we talk about the front office. Should some guys be changed or moved around there? Of course, we're going to have those conversations. But right now, focusing in on this defense, Shane Bowen, long overdue to be fired. This just needed to happen, Alex. And you really think about it. Look at what we saw yesterday. The Giants basically put a phenomenal performance together for 3.5 quarters, then squandered it against one of the best teams in the NFC, a playoff potential, Super Bowl potential roster with the Detroit Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he put up 50 fantasy points for me yesterday in one of my leagues. Shout out to Shane Bowen for helping me win. Single-handedly, Shane Bowen helped me win my fantasy game yesterday because Jahmyr Gibbs ran rampant on the New York Giants defense, especially when Dexter Lawrence was inexplicably standing on the sidelines watching. I don't care if Dexter Lawrence is a little banged up, whatever. You said it, Alex. It's the first play of overtime. Put your best players on the football field. And Carl Banks ripped into Shane Bowen yesterday. I don't know if you heard that on the radio network. He ripped into Shane Bowen saying you can't make a rotation there. And what he said that really stuck with me, Alex, between the end of the fourth quarter and the start of overtime, that's about 10 minutes of real time between the commercials, the coin toss, the rules explanation, and all that crap. 10 minutes. There's no reason why any of your best 11 players on defense should have been resting on the first play of overtime after a 10-minute intermission between the fourth quarter and the start of the overtime period. Dexter Lawrence should have been on the field. The fact that he wasn't, it's not because he was a little banged up and they were resting him. It's because of coaching malpractice. It's because of a lack of attention to detail from Shane Bowen. And that's what's been killing the New York Giants all season long, a lack of attention to detail. That's what's gotten them in all of these fourth quarter moments. And just think about how many of those fourth quarter moments that the offense battled, came up big, and the defense let them down. Think about that Denver game, right? Where Jackson Dart put his body on the line, smashed into 2 Broncos defenders, fell forward and crossed the ball over the goal line to give what should have been a game-winning touchdown for the New York Giants. Then Jude McAdam misses a field goal or an extra point, and all of a sudden the Giants defense just cannot get a stop. And of course, the Denver Broncos get a walk-off win. That's happened so many times this season, and nobody's been held accountable for it. Finally, we're holding Shane Bowen accountable, but much, much overdue, Alex. So what do you think is next for this Giants defense? You're reflecting on this season and how Shane Bowen, in large part, really squandered. I mean, look, those 5 games, like I said, 5 10-point leads that were completely squandered and blown by the New York Giants. Imagine if they won those 5 games. They'd be a 7-win playoff team. That's the effect of that lack of attention to detail, and that coaching malpractice from Shane Bowen has the Giants from potentially being a playoff team to being the first team eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's coaching. Like we have seen example upon example upon example of the difference between good and bad coaching. The 49ers game was a good example of that. Their whole defense was shredded to pieces, but they still beat our ass. You know what I mean? So, look, and Anthony and I were talking just before the podcast started about Chris Shula. If you guys watched yesterday, what the Rams did to the Buccaneers, a good football team, body bagged them, like completely body bagged them. And their defense, 7 points allowed? They put up 34, whatever it was. They dominated them. And that's the attention to detail. That's being prepared more than your opponent, having a higher standard for effort and execution. So the Giants need a coach that's going to come in here and be at the cutting edge of the NFL in terms of play calling, schematics, but also have the awareness to, learn, know their mistakes and their flaws, and also elevate a unit, coach a team. So I'm really interested in Shula right now. Like that's, one of my top candidates. I mean, of course the Giants would love an experienced guy, but there may not be a more experienced guy 8 years spending underneath Sean McVay. So, there's that take as well. Right now, when it comes to Shane Bowen, and you bring in a a head coach like Shula, your defense is going to be elite, at least schematically going to be elite. You have to find the personnel. It may take a season or two to get that actually perfected. But you're going to have the cutting edge defensive system that you so desperately need. Shane Bowen's defensive system was one of the worst. It didn't adapt. It didn't change. It just stood there and died. Like it was really unfortunate to watch. It really blows my mind, Anthony, in general, that so many coordinators just sit idle. They do not innovate. They do not change. I'll give Mike Kafka credit in that regard. He always is innovating on offense. There is a lot of different wrinkles and elements to his system that do work. The trick plays yesterday were perfectly executed. The timing of the screen passes, even the run game has been decent. The offensive line has been really good. The pass protection, they've called good plays to at least maximize their talent. I actually would like a Shula head coach, Mike Kafka offensive coordinator situation, but obviously that's not going to happen because Kafka's play calling has been good as of late. The question more so is at this point, what is the ceiling of this team with different coaching, with better coaching? I'd say it's significantly higher, like you just mentioned. Good coaching could change the entire, future of this team, but they got to hit on that coach, and that's what we're going to end up exploring in the next couple months.
Yeah, to me, that ceiling really is a 7-win team through this 12-week period because those 5 games that they blew those fourth quarter leads, a good coaching staff, Alex, closes out those leads. If they close out those leads, then the New York Giants have 7 wins and are a playoff-bound football team. That's the ceiling of this New York Giants team, and that's why I say go into this offseason, hire the right head coach, get a proven commodity, somebody with experience. I know you mentioned Chris Shula. Everybody knows I love Chris Shula. I can't wait to do a breakdown on him. I would love to hire him. But if the Giants go with, say, Mike McCarthy or somebody else who's a veteran, experienced head coach that can just elevate the floor of this team, you're talking about those 5 games all being closed out. You're talking about a 7-win playoff-bound New York Giants football team. That's how close this team is. The roster is pretty good. It's not perfect. There's definitely holes. And again, we got to have a conversation about Joe Schoen in the front office and all of that. But this roster, definitely good enough to close out those games. The coaching staff, not good enough. And as a result, the New York Giants are the first team eliminated from the playoffs rather than being a 7-win playoff-bound team. So, Alex, who's going to be calling plays for the Giants defense from here on out now that Shane Bowen has been fired? It's going to be none other than Charlie Bolan. He is the New York Giants outside linebackers coach, for those of you who don't know. And here's kind of your background on him. He has 18 years of coaching experience, including 12 in the NFL. This is his second season as the Giants outside linebackers coach. So when it says outside linebackers coach, that kind of means edge rusher coach, right? He's the guy who works closely with Kayvon, with Abdul Carter, with Brian Burns, with those guys. He's the one who's coaching up those edge rushers and kind of helping put together the schematics behind the pass rush. So Charlie Bolan is expected to become the New York Giants' next defensive coordinator, essentially, interim defensive coordinator. Alex, what's your take on that, Charlie Bolan? I'm not sure if you are super familiar with him, what your opinion of him is, and, kind of how do you think that maybe Bolan taking over as the play caller is going to change things?
So he's 41. At least from what I've read so far, is that they think highly of him in the building. I don't really know what stock to put in that because anyone the Giants feel good about internally right now is probably not that good. However, it's a fresh face. You know what I mean? Like, it's an unexpected element now. We don't really know what defense they're going to run. Like, are they going to drop their outside linebackers into coverage? Are they going to be more pass rush oriented? Are they going to blitz more? Like, how much can you change the defense mid-season? I think that's kind of the question. They'll probably keep things relatively similar, start adding in the wrinkles, and then during the bye week, they'll fully install a new kind of system where it's a little bit different. I would expect them to be playing more zone. I expect them to be, rushing their 4 guys, maybe sending some extra blitzers, like be more aggressive. Like, at this point, what do you have to lose? I think that's kind of the MO for the Giants coaching staff this year. What do you have to lose? The season is over. Put your best foot forward. Don't play conservative. Go for the turnovers. Go for the sacks. Send extra blitzers. Force mistakes like that. I'd love to see a more aggressive defense from Bolan. And, they think highly of him. Don't know what that means in terms of his system, but he's an outside linebacker assistant coach. He is probably not called defensive plays in the NFL, and that's going to be a big adjustment for him.
Yeah, he hasn't called plays in the NFL, but here is one interesting tidbit of information. Bolan used to work under Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, one of the best DCs in the league, and in fact, somebody who the Giants will very likely bring in for a head coaching interview. this offseason. Vance Joseph is considered one of the best coordinators in the league. He has former head coaching experience. He could be in line for a head coaching job. So there is a potential avenue here for the Giants to end up bringing in Vance Joseph as their next head coach and retaining Bolan here as their DC under Vance Joseph, since they do have that connection from working together years ago. But to give you kind of an idea of what this defense might look like, if Charlie Bolan, considering he kind of cut his teeth while underneath Vance Joseph, if he's going to run more Vance Josephian principles, you can expect more blitzing, a really aggressive defense, and probably a heavy blend of both man and zone coverage, because that's what Vance Joseph typically runs. A lot of 3-4 defense with 4-man pass rushes and then a lot of blitzes mixed in. So they can get pretty creative. And obviously, since this is not Vance Joseph's defense or Shane Bowen's defense, this is going to become Mike Kafka and Charlie Bolan's defense. It'll probably be a blend. There will be some elements of what we saw from Bowen. There will be some elements of what we see over in Denver with Vance Joseph. And there will be some of their own wrinkles that Kafka and Bolan are going to work in together. But I'm curious to see what this defense looks like. The Giants have one game coming up here against the New England Patriots on Monday night. Then they are on the bye week. So let's see how obviously things kind of shift and alter for them moving forward. They've got a lot of time to work things out before that final stretch after the bye week. But I'm very curious to see what this defense looks like. And so, Alex, that's where I'll ask you, how do you want to see the defense change? We don't know exactly how it will change. We don't know exactly what Charlie Bolan's scheme is going to look like after this adjustment. What do you want to see adjusted? What do you want to see change for the Giants?
I mean, listen, what do I want to see adjusted? I want to see them allow their best players to make plays. And I think that that's creating openings for Brian Burns to attack the quarterback, creating opportunities for interceptions and turnovers, teach their players how to tackle properly and how to punch the ball out. They don't go for turnovers anymore. Like they straight up, the only time that they've tried to go for a turnover this year is Bobby Okereke knocked Cordell Flott out cold on that peanut punch. So, they just changed their kind of styles. With Wink Martindale, you remember how often they were punching for the football, going for the turnover. If you're going to miss tackles, you might as well try to go for the football. You know what I mean? The Giants miss a whole lot of damn tackles. The only guy that doesn't miss tackles is Andrew Phillips. That dude's a freaking tackling machine. In coverage, iffy, but as a tackler, one of the best tacklers on this team. They should be going for the football. They should be going for turnovers and momentum-changing events that flip the script. When is the last time the Giants had a big turnover in the fourth quarter to win a football game? I cannot recall. I cannot. Maybe that game against the Ravens where Kayvon Thibodeau had that strip sack on Lamar, was it 3 years ago? That's the one that pops to mind. They haven't had a big fourth quarter turnover because they're not seeking them. They're letting defenses beat them. They're letting offenses beat them. They're playing soft coverage. They're not sending enough blitzers. They don't have the best personnel on the field at critical moments. Like, that is a coaching problem. They need to be coached up to be more aggressive. And I think that should be a big change. Go for the turnovers, go for the big plays, run more stunts, get more twists in there, send more blitzers that allocate attention, to away from Brian Burns, away from Abdul Carter, flush quarterbacks a certain way. We know that, for example, we use Jackson Dart as an example. He loves to roll out to his right, like flush him out to his left. So that way, Carter has an opportunity or Burns has an opportunity. They can be more with more intention. They can coach with more intention instead of just hoping to walk into luck. And I think that that's kind of what I'd like Bolan to do, is have more intention with his play calling, have more intention with his style. And we know that if we do this, the result should be that. Bowen was like, we know if we do this, we don't know what the hell's going to happen. Like, let's just hope we get lucky. I hope there's an end result or a goal in mind with the actual scheme, instead of it just being like praying and hoping that something good happens. So it's by accident. That can't be a style or strategy. And that's what the Giants have been leaning on this entire season.
Yeah, and one other thing that I want to see the pass rushers get after it. I'm so sick and tired of seeing Brian Burns drop back into coverage. 7 times yesterday, 10 times a couple weeks ago. Let Brian Burns get after the quarterback, man. Let Abdul Carter be turned loose. I want to see this kid get the first sack of his career. And now knowing that Charlie Bowen is the outside linebackers coach being elevated into intern DC, I want to see him gear this defense towards getting those pass rushers home, getting those OLBs, those outside linebackers / edge rushers home. Get Brian Burns even more sacks. He's already got 13. Let's get him to 23. F it. Why not? Let's see Abdul Carter get 3. Let's see some of these guys get home with these pass rushes. I'm just hoping to see a more aggressive defense, not one that sits and off man coverage with the cornerbacks line 8 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, giving up easy chunk plays. That's why the Giants pass rush doesn't get home sometime. It's not because the pass rushers are underperforming. It's because when the cornerbacks are 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, it's very easy for Jared Goff to flip a quick hand signal over to Amon-Ra St. Brown and tell him to run a slant route and throw the ball within the first second that the ball is actually snapped. Pass rushers can't get home that way. And obviously, cornerbacks cannot make a play when they're 8 yards off the line of scrimmage that way. So that's what I want to see change. Number one, first and foremost, play some press coverage, please. It can be press zone. It can be press man. I do not care. Just stop lining up 8 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, especially on 2nd and 10. I mean, what are we doing? So hopefully we do see some schematic changes from the New York Giants. Once again, I don't know how drastic those changes are going to be because it is midseason. It's tough to make drastic changes midseason, but nevertheless, the Giants have to do drastic things now. And hey, they fired Shane Bowen. That's step one in the right direction. Now we have a very interesting close to the rest of the season with the Giants already out of playoff contention. Who fights, who steps up, who battles and proves that they want to be a member of the New York Giants in 2026, and who doesn't, who gets shipped out as the 2026 offseason rolls closer. I'm curious to see how it all shapes out. And of course, we're going to keep you updated and posted on everything regarding the Giants coaching search and everything else in between right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. So without further ado, catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.